All right, the topic that I wanted to go over today is inflammation, or really tips and tricks to manage your inflammation. So I'm going to start with just talking a little bit about understanding, hey, all inflammation is not bad. It's a chemical response to let the body know that it needs to start the healing process. So, when inflammation can be a catchword, right? You hear it a lot. Hey, bring your inflammation down, it'll do X, Y, Z, which can be true. So we can get caught up in the spider web of information that, may or may not help you. So first of all inflammation is not bad, okay? It's a communication response, again, for the body to start the healing process. With muscle contraction, you do micro trauma to the fiber itself, and that tissue has to repair itself. So when you do resistance training, you're going to have an inflammatory response. It's a good thing. So that's why sometimes you'll see people talk about not being exposed to cold plunges or cold exposure within a window of time from your resistance training workout, because your body needs the time to start the healing process. And with cold exposure, it can kind of mess with that a little bit, specifically hypertrophy training, but that's a whole nother topic. Again, all inflammation is not bad. What I'm going to talk about is some general tips that you can implement today to help with your inflammation. Now, what I want to do is I do want to talk about chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is where we get in trouble. And then we can go into metabolic disease. So we're seeing a lot of these ramifications of high inflammatory response within the body is causing some metabolic conditions, metabolic disease, diabetes. One is one of them, and it goes down the line from there. High blood pressure, heart disease. So all of these are associated with more of a chronic inflammation. And I'm going to talk different tips that you can implement today to combat inflammation, or more of chronic inflammation. And then I'll go into more of other modalities that you can implement into your lifestyle to help with inflammation as well. So first one I will talk about is obviously nutrition, the diet. That's where you want to start, and that's a simple way to start with combating inflammation. So when we want to look at this, we want to look at a diet that is more of an anti-inflammatory diet. Again, it's going to be more of a catch phrase or catch word. What is an anti-inflammatory diet? If you Google that, you're probably going to see a higher protein diet, more of animal fats, and then a higher fiber diet, less carbs. So it is really simple to implement. And another area that you'll want to think about when you think about nutrition diet, anti-inflammatory diet, is your omega-3s, omega-3 fatty acids. And obviously, depending on where you live, access to fish and high omega-3 products, you may not have access to that. Where you can get it in is free-range eggs, okay? So you can get a lot of really good fatty, omega-3 fatty acids from your free-ranged eggs. Again, you may have to go seek those out, because a lot of them are maybe caged type eggs, so you got to really source out what type of eggs you buy. Now, most grocery stores will provide you. They're going to cost you a little bit more, but they're free-range chickens, the eggs from them. So that it's going to be higher in a omega-3 fatty acid. So higher protein, higher animal fats, omega-3s, you can get them in obviously a capsule, a fish oil capsule, or increase your consumption of products that have higher omega-3 fatty acids, which are obviously fish source is one of them. Reduce processed foods. Obviously, the chemicals that are put in our processed foods are causing an inflammatory response and are causing other diseases to appear, specifically diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, blood pressure. I know, a lot of this can be controlled, but you've got to understand what types of food you're consuming. The other area that you want to do with nutrition or diet is really go after higher fiber content, specifically in fruits and vegetables. That will help combat a lot of the digestion components and stabilize your blood sugar, and it pulls down your inflammation. So again, adopting a diet that is anti-inflammatory diet. So it's again a catchword. I just gave you tips and tricks on how to implement that. From there, obviously, with processed foods, you want to minimize sugar too, because sugar can have an inflammatory response. You can get your sugar from natural sources. A lot of the things that you purchase in the grocery store, you want to look at the sugar content. We consume way too much sugar in what the FDA recommends. You could probably even go lower than what they recommend. I think, and I could be wrong, it's like 25 grams for men. Or no, but it's 30 grams for men and 25 for women. I have to double check myself on that. The other things you can do, regular physical activity, movement. So get your 7,000 to 10,000 steps in, and then incorporate some type of resistance training, lifting weights, minimum 3 days a week. That's minimum. 2 days is probably not enough dosage. You can go up to 4 days, kind of depending on what your goals and programming looks like. But a sweet spot is probably 3 days a week. What happens with the resistance training, it will pull down your natural level of inflammation. Even though it will spike your inflammation, and then what will happen is your body will pull down that natural inflammation. Interesting part with that is a person who does resistance training on a consistent basis, minimum, again, 3 days is a sweet spot, has lower inflammatory response than a person who doesn't do resistance training. So it is a good thing for you to do resistance training on a consistent basis. Again, it goes back to your goals. Manage your stress is another one. Practice some type of mindfulness meditation is good, kind of calm the mind. Then we'll go into the sleep component, making sure you're getting quality sleep. You can get the different devices. I have an Oura Ring, but there's a lot of different ones that may not cost this much that you can really track your sleep. Obviously, the more money you spend, the more information you're going to get, and probably the better quality information you're going to get. So, and then some type of relaxation techniques, breathing techniques. If you master the breathing techniques, which I think I'll talk about a little bit later, because I'll combine them with the cold exposure. Understanding how to do diaphragmatic breathing or box breathing. Again, that's to pull down your inflammatory response. So we'll keep moving here. Hydration. You want to stay hydrated. Drink plenty of water. Obviously, if you can eliminate other chemicals, caffeine, alcohol, because both of those are going to push your inflammatory response up. And then supplements. Obviously, I already talked about the omega-3 you can get from food and or a supplement, omega-3 fatty acids. And then vitamin D. And then turmeric. That's another one. It's anti-inflammatory. I've used some of these as well. Now so that was more of like these simple things you can just choose to start implementing tomorrow. You could also implement some more specific techniques outside of what you understand in a general format. And I've done this myself. Some of them may cost money, some of them may not. So one of them that does not cost money, and you may have heard this, and again, a catchphrase or catchword, but I would say, hey, let's start with one component and then start implementing that into your lifestyle, and then choosing the next one, and you just kind of stack them like that, okay? So grounding or earthing, you've heard of it, walking outside barefoot in the grass. You can do it on concrete as well, and you still get the same effect. What it will do is it will, obviously the earth absorbs electrons, which may help neutralize radicals and reduce inflammation, the radicals in the body. So earthing is a good thing. I do it all the time. I prefer not to wear shoes specifically. Even in the winter, I will go out in more of a cold exposure component and not have shoes on. I do that quite often, and it's a way that I don't have to be intentional, because it's part of what I do. I don't care for specific shoes, and I would prefer going barefoot as much as possible. The other one that you guys may have seen me implement, and I'll probably need to do a little bit more educational components on this, is cold exposure, right? A dose of cold exposure. You can do it multiple ways. I personally invested in cold plunge, do it about a 3-minute stint. Try to do it 3 days a week. I miss it sometimes. But there's also some research where you can do it from, and I've talked about this with the shower, but they've even come back with better research with the shower, and it doesn't take as much exposure as you think. If you do it, up to a minute or something like that, 30 seconds to a minute of cold exposure, preferably on the back of the neck, in the shower. You do that, 2 to 3 days a week, so you're talking 4 to 7 minutes, somewhere in there. They have shown that there's been a really good response in the feel-good hormones, norepinephrine, epinephrine, and then it pulls down your inflammatory response. So I will go pull some of that research, but again, cold exposure, you can do cryotherapy as well. There's a lot of those facilities around. Makes it a little bit quicker. The other one that I've invested in, so I've done both, is heat and cold. The cold exposure, because I don't want to leave this out, affects your heat or cold shock protein. And there's a heat shock protein as well, and that helps pull down your inflammatory response on both sides, so cold shock and heat shock. Obviously, I've invested in the cold and the heat exposure, sauna. You do have to get it up to a specific degree of temperature. You also have to, I would not prefer infrared, even though infrared has been a big marketing component. Infrared can have some response on connective tissue quality, so I'm not saying infrared's bad. It just doesn't give you the stimulus that a traditional sauna will give you, and that's the temperature has to be a specific amount. And most of the traditional will get up to about 190, 189, 180 to 85. Those infrareds will not get that high. I think they get around 170, 175. I'm trying to search for the numbers. I'm trying to pull them out. But that's really the difference in those. So again, heat exposure. You can do hot baths and hot showers if you can tolerate it. Obviously, getting in a sauna it is much better. I do 20 minutes at 180 plus, so it'll work up to about 190 by the time I'm done. And then breathing exercises, which you can put the breathing exercises with Wim Hof and cold exposure, because when I get into the cold plunge, my body goes into fight or flight, and then I control that response with my breathing pattern. So I use diaphragmatic breathing to pull my central nervous system back into rest, relaxation instead of fight or flight, because your body thinks, oh crap, I'm going to freeze or in danger because the cold hits, and you want to get out. So you've got to control your state. Some other ones you guys may not have heard of or know about. Obviously, intermittent fasting can restrict, the eating. You guys know that more from a weight loss component, but that can have some inflammatory response. It gives your body and gut the time to kind of clear itself out and move everything on and turn over protein. So that is one of them that you guys may not know that it helps with inflammatory response. The other one, obviously, the last couple here, you may or may not. One of them is obviously massage therapy. You've heard of that. Soft tissue manipulation. I use the Theragun on almost a daily basis. I use it more for a warm-up standpoint, but then I'll go after areas that may be a little bit more beat up from my workouts. So you can do massage therapy or some type of soft tissue manipulation to help with circulation and pull down your inflammatory response. And then acupuncture is another one. If you're having some issues there or a high inflammatory response, so taking care of the central nervous system and the tissue quality. So acupuncture, and then the other ones would be aromatherapies do work, can stimulate and relax you. So those are more of essential oils, and then obviously you have more of a mind-body practice, and that's going to be more fall in lines with yoga, tai chi, things of that nature, some energy from the energy standpoint. So these are all different ways you can pull down your inflammatory response. I would start with some simple ones and affect your nutrition first, your foundational component, and you can work yourself down. Hey, do I get my workouts in? Do I get movement in? Okay, am I hydrated? Am I getting my sleep? and then start stacking those. Once you have a few of them, you don't have to master, but if you can get close enough, you can really pull your inflammatory response down. When you pull your inflammatory response down, you're going to have less likely to see any type of metabolic disease. Metabolic disease is it's a compounded component of long-term inflammation, and it can be from food, environment, water consumption. All those can impact the metabolic disease that you get from long-term inflammation or chronic inflammation. So hopefully this helps. Again, I went through a long list. What you want to do is kind of pick and choose and start implementing those and get them part of who you are and how you show up. What I'm saying there, it becomes a habit, just like brushing your teeth. Okay? So hopefully this helps, guys. If you need anything else, the cool part is I put a metabolic, and I might punch it inside here. I don't think I put it inside my private group. Is I put out a email to my house list, and I've pushed around. I have a way that I can give you guys an assessment for your metabolism, metabolic, kind of where you're at, maybe areas that you may be missing that I can give you tips and tricks to implement to help you out. So I'll post that inside here. I'll tag everyone if you guys want to fill that out. It's a great tool. And I have a couple of you guys scheduled this week to talk about that. So have a great day, and I'll talk with you soon.